The Indian Navy has commissioned Androth, the second anti-submarine warfare shallow watercraft, during a ceremonial event at the Naval Dockyard in Visakhapatnam. Named after an island in the pristine Lakshadweep, it signals India's determined response to an evolving underwater threat where silence beneath the waves can mean difference between national security and vulnerability. Androth's tech space, tech capacity and capabilities are very, very impressive. At 77.6 meter length and weighing over 1,490 tons, Androth is among the largest Indian warships powered by a diesel engine waterjet combination. The waterjet propulsion system provides exceptional maneuverability, and that too in shallow waters, a crucial advantage when tracking submarine in coastal areas where traditional propellers might be less effective. It boasts lightweight torpedoes, indigenous anti-submarine warfare rockets, anti-torpedo decoys and mine-laying capabilities. Androth's induction could not have been timed better. The Indian Ocean, once considered Indian Navy's strategic backyard, now witnesses increased Chinese naval presence, including submarine deployments. Pakistan's expanding submarine fleet, aided by Chinese technology and financing, poses a threat to India's western seabed. Pakistan is strengthening its submarine fleet with 8 new Chinese Hangar-class submarines. China's navy could become the world's largest maritime force with over 370 vessels. In such a scenario, India faces unprecedented challenges. The shallow coastal waters, once considered natural barriers, have become contested spaces where modern submarines can lurk undetected, threatening merchant shipping, naval assets and coastal installations. Androth's commissioning in the Indian Navy marks the country's push towards indigenization and enhancement of the defense capabilities. Androth is built by Kolkata-based Garden Reach Shipbuilders and engineers. It has over 80% of the materials developed indigenously in the country. Androth joins the recent induction of Arnala, Nistar, Udayguri and Nilgiri in the Indian Navy, becoming a part of the military's growth across maritime operation. Recently, several state-of-the-art warships have joined Indian Navy, and this induction is part of the larger fleet and momentum towards building its maritime strength. Navy plans to induct 16 anti-submarine warfare vessels at a total cost of 13,000 crore. Now let me straight away introduce my guest. I am joined by Vice Admiral retired K. N. Sushil, former CNC Southern Naval Command, and Group Captain retired V. N. Jha, former Joint Director DRDO. Let me straight away go to Vice Admiral Sushil. Sir, can you please decode it for us as to why this technology is path-breaking and this particular vessel is need of an hour?
Anti-submarine warfare over the past years has been growing in importance. Earlier it was just an adjunct to the normal naval operations, but no more. Submarines are all pervasive and they're all over and they can operate anywhere. Shallow waters offers great challenges. One, it is difficult for the submarine itself to operate there because you effectively deny the third dimension of depth. There are other traffic congestions there like fishing boats, etc. So navigationally it is hazardous. But yet shallow waters are an important point because that is the focal point where the own shipping are likely to converge and therefore very, very vulnerable areas, and therefore it is mandatory for submarines to operate there. To detect a submarine in shallow waters becomes much more difficult for various reasons. Sonar theory goes on and on about various problems which you face in shallow waters. But what is interesting is that over the past so many years, India has developed its sonar capability to a very, very sophisticated level. And that is why this ship, brings that force into it. And our indigenous sonar is one of the greatest success stories we have. So shallow water capable anti-submarine vessels are vital for various reasons. One is, preventing submarines from operating in our own shallow waters and giving us the protection. And also to give escort to other vessels which leave the shallow water and go into the deep areas. Like, for example, a nuclear submarine proceeding on petrol needs to be escorted out before she is able to dive and go on her own. So these are the various roles which the shallow water craft, ASW craft have in them.
Okay, let me go across to Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha, are we saying that the shallow water operations have become very, very important, and the entire space which was not important 50, 60 years ago has assumed greater importance because of leap in the technologies?
Very good evening, Karthik. This is the golden period of Indian Navy. That's what, in short, I can call it. You know, today we are so proud that India, of its own specifications, of the Naval Design Bureau, is designing and manufacturing the combat ships, be it aircraft carrier, be it submarine, both conventional as well as nuclear, be it anti-submarine warfare, both deep water and shallow water, be it anti-ballistic missiles as well as the deep vessel killing or the warfare, be it standard or stealth vessels, be it slow range or long range torpedoes, be it various configuration of ships. You know, you can name anything, the entire gamut of the operations that is on the horizon for the Navy. It is being designed by the Naval Design Bureau that every Indian should be proud of. I suppose even Admiral, I think, was part of it sometime somewhere. And this is all made in India. And, you know, the small startups, they are taking the lead into this. In the aircraft carrier, there were about 450 odd startups. In this particular the shallow water submarine, the ship that we are talking of, even in this, there are 100 odd startups which are making the systems, subsystems, and many other things. And the young mind have come there who is thinking of future. They are no longer thinking of today. So all those designs are going on, all those concepts of the designs are going on, which can always be upgraded. It could be modular or it could be standard system replacement. So this is all going on, that every Indian is proud of it. I can remember, you know, 2013, 2014, when our sole aircraft carrier was going to be phased out and we had nothing. Today we have got 2 aircraft carriers and third in the pipeline.
I think, you know, you have stolen words from my mouth, sir. You know, this is the question I had for Vice Admiral Sushil, sir. Is aircraft carrier going to be the centerpiece of the future naval warfare, or has something shifted because of the great leap in technology in the intermediate range ballistic missiles, the way the Chinese have deployed them, or is it going to be submarine based? Are we still looking at aircraft carriers as the jewel in the naval crown, or things might change in future, or things are already changing, sir? Can you please decode it for our viewers?
See, your whole framework of what you said is as complicated as it is simple, because the warfare, naval warfare, is fought at various levels. You know, each has its own capabilities. To say that, okay, this has taken precedence or that has taken precedence is not really the fact. And it all depends on what your end game is all about. For example, if you want to make a small presence in deterrence, then you don't need the aircraft carrier, because he represents massive power. And if you want to show massive power, you need the aircraft carrier. And, you know, it goes on like that. So it depends on what exactly you want to do at a particular point in time. If you're going for an all-out action and you want to project your power onto the enemy's land, then you need a massive aircraft carrier which can sustain operations in enemy areas and also overcome whatever the enemy has to throw at us and yet maintain superiority. And an aircraft carrier is the only vessel that can carry that mass, whereas the other units have less mass but can, you know, do thorn pricking operations. You know, you can hit few targets, you can create a level of deterrence to say that, you know, if you go any further, we will. So you can control the escalation with various objects. So it's not an easy question to answer. Whether the aircraft carrier will take precedence or the submarine will take precedence, it's not as simple and straightforward as it seems.
Strategically, sir, how big a threat the expanding Chinese Navy is for the Indian interest?
As long as there is any power which has got a technological edge and is expanding in its deployed power, it is always a threat. Because the greater the military power, the greater the influence you wield. And we, if you look back in 1980s, 85, technologically we were at almost par with China in terms of various assets we had and various assets they had. But they have taken a leap and we have somehow lagged behind. So there is always this nagging thread. And, there is a book called Silicon Samurai in which he derives a saying. It says that threat always emanates from a greater technological power to a lower technological power. So as long as China is able to wield this technology advantage and firepower advantage over us, they will always have this edge to dictate some terms to us. We have enough power to sort of create a level of deterrence where we can, expect that the actions will not go out of control. That is the stage we are in. But we need to go far ahead.
Mr. Jha, do you think that we can really do this leapfrog business? Because, the Chinese leapfrogging is also based on massive reverse engineering and stolen technologies, which has been documented by many authors.
That's very true. Most of the Chinese technical manufacturing or designs are based on stolen designs, whether it is from the Russian side or USSR side, or whether it is the USA side. That is true. But I would just, like to add one sentence to what just now you had asked the question to Admiral about the aircraft carrier and submarine. Look, don't go by the size or shape of the aircraft carrier. These are the force multipliers. One aircraft carrier is stationed somewhere around, you can say about 500 kilometers radius. You are absolutely, dictating the terms with anyone else that may like to come there. And aircraft carrier is never alone. It has got the sister services, sister systems, which are killer, which are detector, which are sensors. All those things go along with the aircraft carrier. Similarly with the submarine. And the nuclear submarine that can remain at the bed of the sea for months together without any problem, without any noise being made there. So these are the force multiplier that you can position anywhere in the world, anywhere in the international water. You can go and you can stay there. So this is something. Of course, there are pros and cons of having it in the international water away from our own defense lines. But this is something. Now coming back to this Androth, this has got a beautiful system. It's a diesel engine, but it has got the jet water propulsion with which it can make lot of grounds. It has got as Admiral was telling you, it has got the most advanced of the sonar, variable depth sonar it has got. At the hull, it has got the radar system, which can detect many of the things both in the azimuth and the horizon.
Okay.
But this also has got the potency to go onto the low frequency radar, which can detect even the stealth aircraft carrier or stealth aerial threats. So all those things are there. It has got the additional functions of the mine laying, low intensity marine ops, anti-submarine.
Sir, what's the best part? I think out of all three services, the most Atmanirbharta is being demonstrated by the Indian Naval Services. One has to put that on record, The indigenization process, the entire thing, it's the Navy which gets the cake. So I've really run short of time. Thank you both of you for joining me. It makes me immensely proud that we have been able to indigenously develop a system which a lot of countries aspire that they want to have it and they want to build it, but we have done it. So this was on point 2. In on point 3, we'll talk about External Affairs Minister Jaishankar drawing a red line for the United States of America. India has emphasized that any trade deal with the United States must respect its red lines amid tensions over Washington's imposition of additional tariffs on New Delhi. Jaishankar said during an event in New Delhi on Sunday that negotiations with US were ongoing and the aim was to reach a trade understanding that protects India's national interests. Jaishankar reiterated that a trade understanding with the US was essential. However, any agreement must safeguard India's core interests.
Whatever happens, at the end of the day, there has got to be a trade understanding with the United States. There has to be one because it is the world's largest market, but also because it is, much of the world has reached those understandings. But it has to be an understanding where our bottom lines, our red lines are respected. In any agreement, there are things you can negotiate and there are things you can't.
Jaishankar had drawn India's red line in the context of recent tensions over the tariffs imposed by US. Now let's look at the origin of the term red line, derived from the concept of a line in the sand. The term red lines appears to have emerged in the 70s to denote actions one nation regards as unacceptable from other nations. In a nutshell, it is an implicit threat. In 2021, President Putin said Russia would be forced to act if its red lines on Ukraine were crossed by NATO. Former US President James Monroe's Monroe Doctrine of 1823 involved drawing a red line with an implicit war threat by the US against any European effort to colonize or reassert control in the Western Hemisphere. In a meeting with the US President Joseph Biden in November 2022, Chinese President Xi Jinping declared that Taiwan was the first red line that must not be crossed. Donald Trump has been keeping everybody guessing as usual, from calling India and China funders of Russia's Ukraine at the UN to terming Prime Minister Modi a good friend, while also cozying up to Pakistan and repeatedly making a claim on the ceasefire that followed Operation Sindoor. But finally, we have also drawn that red line. But most important thing is that the Prime Minister has said that he will not allow the interest of the farmers to be sacrificed. Let me straight away go to Ambassador Jayant Dasgupta. Sir, to put it simply for our viewers, you are the expert. What is the red line that Jaishankar is talking about tangibly? What is that red line?
I think Minister Jaishankar is talking about several red lines, not a single one. And the first one, of course, would be agriculture and dairy, and allowing GMO foods to come in. And of course, soya and corn, which is mostly GM in the US. So that is one. The other one is, of course, dairy. And dairy products is another red line. Apart from these, which may have triggered the first set of 25% tariffs on India with effect from the 7th of August, Minister Jaishankar has also mentioned the second tranche, which is related to the Russian purchase of Russian oil. And that is another red line, that we will continue to buy Russian oil. And we will exercise our strategic autonomy to buy from whichever source we want to. So these are palpably the most important red lines. There could be a few others where there could be some amount of give. But I think on these three issues, there is absolutely no compromising. That is what Minister Jaishankar seems to be implying very clearly.
Ambassador, Jaishankar also said one more important thing. He said that both countries have not landed on a common ground where, they could align themselves on certain issues in which they agree, which means that the conversation that is taking place has not been able to create that foundation.
Yes. I think another very important aspect of these negotiations is that President Trump has been harping on the trade deficit in only goods terms. And if you take services, if you take IPR, royalties, and the whole gamut of flows of funds or money, then the situation is not as adverse as President Trump points out. So I think that has led to the levying of this these tariffs of 25%.
But Ambassador,
there has to be some kind of an understanding which has to be arrived at, that, what is it that you are taking into account to come to your conclusions, and how do you want us to cooperate so as to address this situation?
But,
of course, India seems to...
But
Yes.
the reason why I wanted to come back on this issue is, he says that we have not arrived at a landing ground for a trade discussion. And he said that the talks with the US for the trade understanding, where our bottom lines and red lines are respected. When he says that landing ground for a trade discussions, we have not arrived there, what does it mean, sir? A lot of people would say, iska matlab kya hai?
I think the basic thing is the rationale for imposing tariffs on India, which don't seem to have any logic. Of course, the tariffs on the other countries also don't seem to have any logic. So that is, I think, what he's been hinting at, to my mind, that the whole logic of imposing, unilateral tariffs and very high tariffs at that, based on some calculation initially of the trade deficit, which has also now been, I think, thrown overboard. It is no longer about trade deficits. It is just that I will do it. And since we are the largest market in the world and you are so heavily dependent, you have a trade surplus, you will bow to our